Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, please.
Al Davis,
Here.
Robert Laraway,
Yep.
Ray Peavy,
Here.
Earl Shannon, yes, Dave Torgerson,
Here.
and Paul is excused.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. We have more. The agenda is before you. I have one modification to the agenda on presentation and reports. We have Sheriff Main here tonight. So he will take the place of the LIPOA report. And other than that, are there any objections to that agenda? Okay, so agenda stands as corrected or as modified. All right, consent agenda, everything before you. Anybody want to take anything out to discuss? If not, Chair will entertain a motion. Motion made by Laraway to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Davis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion carried. I have a very short report to make. As we'll get on later, we need to make sure that we're thinking about people that could help us out here on the council and replace some of the people that may be leaving. So I just want you to search that around in your mind and be aware of that. Try to get some ideas. All right. Next is audit report.
We are joined tonight by Bill Hirschman through the lovely technology called Zoom that you're all familiar with. He will be presenting our audit tonight. Bill, the floor is yours, I believe.
Thank you much. I just heard the.
And I'm gonna make you the host.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hear me now? I will, try to make this short and sweet. Everything went really well this year. I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see that. Screen one or screen here? Nope, screen here. What's it not gonna let me do? It go share.
Let's try.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, this is just a quick packet out of your full report. There's nothing new in here, so I'm just gonna kind of go through some highlighted areas. The most important sentence in the entire report is on your independent audit report, second paragraph down. I got a box around it. Hopefully you can see it. Let me know, Tim, if you can't. It says, in our opinion, financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, it's also considered an unqualified, unmodified opinion. It's highest level of assurance you can get. So everything is good in terms of the auditor's opinion. The second page of the audit opinion, it talks about two different things: required supplementary information. This paragraph right here, that's referring to the budgetary comparison schedules, as well as the management discussion and analysis. And if you see in the middle of the paragraph there, it says we have applied certain limited procedures to the required information. What we do is we read that and make sure there's nothing in those documents that is inconsistent with what we saw during our audit, but we do not audit that. So the last paragraph here boxed in, we do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the information because of the limited procedures do not provide us with enough evidence to issue that opinion. So that's regarding the budget and a management discussion and analysis. The next paragraph, this is supplementary information. It's the financial statements in the back of your report, the detailed statements. We do audit that information, and the box at the bottom of that paragraph, in our opinion, the additional supplementary information are fairly stated in all material respects. And then the last paragraph refers to our report that's required by government auditing standards. That report is in this packet. So we will cover that in just a minute. So has anybody got any questions over the independent auditor's report? Just shout them out if you do.
We're good.
All right.
Go to the next page. This is the statement of net position, which is basically your balance sheet. The governmental activities column is your general fund, major local street and fire withholding. And then the business type activities is your airport and sewer. Your unrestricted fund balance is a very healthy, almost 600 grand in those combined funds. And then the second page of that that ties into it, this is your statement of activities. It's a fancy name for income statement, where all your activities are combined together. What I highlighted here is your change in net position or net income. If you were a for-profit company, had a loss of about 47,000 in your governmental funds and just about $600 in the business type funds. So that's where you ended the year at. This page here is just a detailed summary of the funds that make up the major funds, the general, major street, local street. This non-major is your fire withholding. This page here is the revenues related to those funds. You'll see here where your excess of revenues over expenditures in the general fund was 36 grand increase. Major streets where you had your biggest loss was 89,000. Local street added 14 grand to the fund balance. These other pages here, I just put them in the packet just so you can see what the enterprise funds were. The airport and sewer, not a lot of activity in there this year. As you can see, just a little bit of contract expenses in the sewer fund, cash flow related to that. This is your fire withholding. Again, not a lot of activity in the fire withholding fund. And then the other letter, it was referred to in the independent auditors report at the bottom. It referred to the government auditing standards letter. In this letter here, we issue a response to our report on internal control over financial reporting. And reading the highlighted area of this paragraph, we consider the village's internal control over financial reporting as a basis for designing audit procedures, not for the purpose of expressing opinion on the effectiveness of those controls. So we do test internal controls, payroll, disbursements, receipts, journal entries, those type of controls. If we find an issue, it would be identified in this letter, but we do not express an opinion as to how effective they are. And if you go down a couple of paragraphs later, you'll see in the red box, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be a material weakness. And then the next paragraph, it's kind of the same approach regarding compliance. We performed tests of compliance, which could have a direct and material effect on the financial statements amount, providing an opinion was not an objective. So again, we're required to test compliance with various things. We do not test it extensively enough to be able to issue an opinion. So we do not issue an opinion on compliance. However, if we find non-compliance issues, they would be identified in this paragraph. And as you can see, it says the results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported. So in terms of internal control and compliance, everything was clean on that letter. And I believe the last one is the communication with those charged with governance. You should have got this letter in the mail. It just kind of highlights some significant audit matters that we need to we're required to communicate. I highlighted some of the basics here. We noted no transactions entered during the year, which was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. All the transactions have been recognized in the statements in the proper period. Regarding accounting estimates, the significant estimates were compensated absences, as well as estimated lives of capital assets. We make a comment regarding difficulties encountered during the performing of the audit. We encountered no such difficulties. That's always good. We accumulate all known and likely misstatements and communicate them to the appropriate level of management. None of the misstatements detected were material. I don't believe there were any, but we're still required to put this wording in here. There were no misstatements. Second part of that letter, we are pleased to report there were no disagreements that arose during the course of the audit. We requested and received representations from management. To our knowledge, there were no consultation with other accountants, and we generally discuss a variety of matters with management. Our responses were not a condition to our retention.
Anyhow,
Getting some reverb here.
um,
That quick overview. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Yeah, it was a pretty straightforward audit. Things were pretty routine.
Clean opinion. Okay,
Thank you, Bill.
thank you.
you bet. Thank you.
Apologize for the audio problems, but hope you all have a great holidays and give me a call if you have any questions.
Will do.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You bet.
Now we're back.
And we're back. Okay, agenda item number 3, report by village manager. Mr. Manager.
You have my report in writing, not a whole lot going on right now to talk about that you don't already know about. Probably the only item that's not in there that I will report on tonight is that, tonight at the County Board of Commissioners meeting, they are considering a contract with a third-party firm to take over the management of the water system with Tim Warner's pending retirement.
That's what they're going to discuss tonight.
Yeah, they have a contract on their agenda tonight for roughly $32,000 to have them be the licensed operator of the system and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for Tim? Right. Sherman Township report.
Just 3 quick things and then I'll hand it over to Sheriff Maine to give him more time. We're continuing doing our work on the cemetery updates. We've got it where we've got things divided out now, so like 11 different sections. Figuring out where we're gonna want to do cremations only. We've also looked into selling single lots for people who want to be buried and have no other family or anything else like that too. And then getting some better markings, taking care of maybe some maps so that when you go to the cemetery, there'll be a map up on the main board there at the front that shows you what the rules are, but have the sections labeled off. So if somebody calls Denise and that she can say you're in section 2, row, whatever, they can see when they get to the cemetery where all that stuff's at, make it a little bit easier for them. So we still have not heard from Lansing regarding any of the sewer system stuff at all. It's been a year now since they gave us the original notice and no enforcement notice, no letters, no nothing. In the last couple of months, we have done a little bit of spending of money, putting in some test well areas along Woodruff, so where a lot of the mains come in from the rest of the town there, just say if we can see the stuff being dumped in there and then test that for E. coli. The last 2 times we've looked in there, they've been bone dry. So even when we get a rain and stuff like that, there's no water getting down into some of those main test areas, so we're gonna have to wait for either big melt off in the spring or a lot of rain to see if anything gets in there, so. But we already do know a lot of the mains in town are blocked. So they may not be getting there, so. Ballot box installation is due on December 29th. We should have our ballot box at the Sherman Township Hall installed. We also do have a camera installed there now too that will watch the ballot box itself. We're required by law to have it up and running 70 days, I think it was, before the election. So that people dropping off ballots and things like that, they have the security to watch the box, so. That's about it for me, so I will reserve the rest of my time for Sheriff Maine.
Okay. Sheriff May.
Good evening, folks. My annual tour, I try to get out and kind of recap the previous year. And then we'll talk about all the bad things, maybe a little bit. So this is 2022. This is what the sheriff's office handled in 2022, and I always kind of come around. I didn't bring the numbers. I think Mr. Wolf's getting those periodically, through the contract, which seems to be working okay. I don't think we've had any problems on our ends. Hopefully you guys haven't had any problems on your end, but if you do, please share it. I know Tim's pretty good about that as well. So I know every time I come in front of you folks, it's the same broken record, and it's not too off from previous years. We were doing pretty good staffing wise. We got into the spring 2022. We lost, we lost 13 employees in 65, no, I'm sorry, 11 employees in 65 days. They left for places that, one had $11 more an hour. One went to MDOT. Day one, took his military time, gave him 10 years retirement, paid him more. I mean, just things I couldn't, couldn't keep up with. We've been rebuilding again at the end of the year, 2022 and 2023, been rebuilding for the last several months. We're starting to get there, we've had some good successes. We actually are, one deputy away from being fully staffed again, which is something pretty much unheard of. So that's good for now. So, we did 16,378 incidents last year, the average of 1.8 an hour. That's about the average of the previous year as well. So, every hour we get about 2 incidents in. The overall, everything we do, arrests went down about 7% they were only about 4%. A lot of that's bail and bond reform. We were at tickets and things like that. So those arrests were down. 49% criminal. And I went back in 2016 when I started doing this and I got appointed and elected. Our criminal at that point was 14%. That's staggering to me. Like it's just dumbfounding to me. And I don't know, we're trying to hold that line, but it has climbed drastically. 21% non-criminal and 26% traffic were no changes from the previous year. We did 1,499 crashes. Additional 892 car versus deer crashes. They were up 111 from the previous year. So if you're a hunter and you're not seeing them, that's because they're all on the road. 1,943 traffic stops. We had 163 personal injury accidents. 8 were fatalities, unfortunately. We've had a few this year again. I'm not sure if we're going to hit the 8 mark, thank goodness, but it's still more than we need. We've had a few recent, so our numbers are going to go up a little bit. We had 306 mental health calls. We did 618 domestic assaults. That was up by about 50. We drove 321,986 miles. We had 162 transports. August was our busiest month and October was our slowest month. Our overall arrests were actually up, even though the overall number for everything we do was down. We were up about 117 to 648. And we did over 400 Freedom of Information Act requests, which was an increase about 91 from the previous year. Our marine stuff was a little down compared to previous years. That staffing issue hit us. We didn't have a lot of people working. I do think we got the hours all in for Lake Isabella, so that was good. We had 53 hours of marine unit, 56 inspections and 5 warnings. The jail took in, and this is overall all the agencies, the jail took in 2,049 inmates. That was an increase of 285 from the previous year. Our average daily population is about 150 in the jail. We did 174,411 meals. We had over 7,000 health risk appraisal and sick calls to the nurse. So 7,000 times inmates came to the nurse that we have contracted. I always mention that because that's our biggest contract we have. And this year, that contract went up $150,000 in one setting. So we said, you know what, we got to go out to RP. This is not right. We went out to RP. We had 3 vendors come back and they were the cheapest. It's just insane. So if anybody wants to become a doctor, I think at this point I can pay for your schooling if you want to work for me for a little while. Like it's that contract's just under $700,000 a year just for the medical piece. It's crazy. We had 31 emergency department visits. Those were either during the time that the medical staff's there, something critical, cardiac issues or whatever, and or something that occurred after they left that was above and beyond, first aid and that kind of stuff. We had 151 in the suicide watch during the year. Our building repairs above beyond the normal was 55,662 to our current structure again. We did bring in $569,913 in grants last year. So that, or in the 2022, that was pretty impressive. Canine, Marine, all kinds of stuff, Homeland Security. The big one that really set that one high was, all the jails got a grant from MDHHS for COVID related expenditure stuff. So it was like a 1-pager. So I filled it out and what the heck, you want to get $10,000. Well, only 14 of the sheriff's offices filled it out. So we got 365,000. So then we're like, how do you spend 365,000? But some creative writing and working with MDHHS, we were able to prove to them that our medical contract, that great big one, did all of our COVID stuff in the jail and everything else. And we were able to apply that entire amount to that. So that was that was pretty good. I don't have that this year, and that's unfortunate, but that was a good one. Animal control's been under us now for a year. They had over 1,000 complaints and had over 100 dog bites they took, the one person that runs that. We did implement a program with community mental health. We have a good relationship with them, the crisis intervention team. So we have a tablets now that the deputies take out. They're about the size of that piece of paper. And dark 30 hours, village like Isabella, Nottawa, Sherman, wherever we're at up in the middle of nowhere, instead of taking somebody that's having some suicidal tendencies or mental health issues all the way back to Mount Pleasant, where our crisis intervention team can meet them, they can actually log in and talk to a person virtually. When sound works. I mean, it happens. But then for like 10 or 15 minutes, and the crisis intervention team member at that point can determine, okay, this person needs to go to the hospital for further treatment, or I'm gonna call them on their phone. You can go, deputy, back to work, or we're gonna follow up in the morning. It's been pretty successful. A few times we've been able to use it. If they're intoxicated or high or, dangerous or, salted, it doesn't really work real well, but, we have used it a few times, so it really does get our folks back on patrols quicker. We had over 4,000 hours of training provided to our staff. I don't know if I got here last year to talk about, the appropriations that we got from the state of Michigan, that project for our radio tower in town. So CMU, the city, Union Township, the tribe, some of the schools around there. Our public safety radios don't really work in them buildings. They bonk out. We call them bonking out. Big problem. The hospitals don't work in the hospitals. So we've been fighting this fight for a few years now, trying to get some funds. We went to the state, our legislators, our senators and stuff, and said, we need, $800,000 to put the tower up. It was COVID dollars. They said, you're asking too little. You got to ask more. So we're like, how about 4.8 million? And that's what they gave us. So we're like, okay. So we have a location. We've been working with Motorola, who's a sole source vendor for MPSCS, which is the state's communications division. This tower is going to go up to central dispatch. We have done due diligence. I hope, we look at the maps. We've done a ton of studies that by putting it where it's at, it'll penetrate the campus, the box stores, the hospitals. It should penetrate the majority of the tribe stuff, if not all of it. We're hoping all of it should reach out down into the Shepherd area a little bit, maybe the schools. The excess money that'll come after that, we'll put what's called BDAs or bidirectional antennas on places that are critically important, schools and so forth, maybe Beale City, that kind of stuff, to make sure we're getting penetration into those buildings that are priority buildings for us. And then when the leftover money from that, we're going to refresh all the law enforcement portables and mobiles are about 2 decades old and they're end of life. Motorola said they're not going to maintenance anymore. In fact, knobs and stuff, we can't even get them anymore. So we're going to refresh all that. So that was a pretty good, thing got going. I will tell you, it's probably the slowest project I've ever seen in my life. We meet every other week and they tell me things are shipping, so we're hoping. One thing that was kind of cool in that story, we had a shelter that we have to purchase, and the shelter is a $500,000 shelter. This can take an RPG hit. It's got all the widgets and gadgets in it for the tower. Like, this is a standard that MPSCS requires. We ended up negotiating with consumers who had one for sale up in the Roscommon or a little farther up area. And they said, yeah, we got it. Motorola looked at it, said it needs a new air conditioning unit. Okay. And so how much you want for it? They said, well, we'll sell it to you for $1. You just got to get it out of here. Sold. So we got a crane, we got the big trucks, and we have it in our possession. So that was a huge savings for us. That was really good. Records management systems and CAD, the dispatching system. So we've been working here the last couple of years to get all the agencies on the same records management system. The sheriff's office went to a program a few years ago. I had it in Shepherd when I was down there. Clare City has it, all Gratiot has it. We share with all of them. The city of Mount Pleasant and CMU have just recently come on board with that. Their sister products called Tech 10. So Isabella Central Dispatch went to that Tech 10. So we're having some bugs yet, but we're working through them. CMU also has a spinoff of that Tech 10, so they can talk back and forth. And we wrote $500,000 to the tribe out of the $700,000 program or project. And Tribal PD is coming on board with their dispatching center and their RMS. So we really will see everything, we'll share everything, we'll be able to throw things back and forth. Really should increase officer safety, productivity, the ability to do a lot of things there. So we're pretty excited about that. We just got to get some of the last bugs worked out. The only thing I got left is the construction project of the new facility. It's been going on since 2016. I'm really ready for this project to wrap up. It's unfortunate that we have some other things going on in the county now that kind of overshadow this, because it really is starting to kind of get a little exciting out there, you know, and it's taking shape inside the offices, you can start seeing, I know what this room is, you know, I remember from the prints, and I really thought that when they started started building it, putting brick and mortar in there, they would just say, hey, Mike, come back at, you know, when it's done, we'll hand you the keys. And boy, that is not the case. It's like 3 or 4, 5, 6 meetings a week, and there's a ton of work to it. So I can tell you that our current facility continues, I mean, not even the maintenance stuff. We had a heating unit blow up on it about a year ago. You know, we had to have a contractor come in and put a portable heating unit into the jail to keep it heated. It was $1,000 a day. Well, they tried to find parts for a 45-year-old heating unit. But we're also having special needs, and we're having a lot of like juveniles being charged as adults. There's no place to put them since they did raise the age, and that's really causing some problems. We really don't have a place in the jail. It's a linear dormitory, so the couple times we've had to house these 17-year-old, basically they're charging as adults who are very violent offenders. I mean, one of them was attempted murder down in Kent County and all kinds of stuff. So unfortunately, we have to lock their entire facility down anytime we move them to rec or to medical or anything, because they can't see another adult. So it really puts a strain on the system. The new jail will have some more capabilities and opportunities for that kind of stuff, but there is no place to really put them. We did find Saginaw has, because they have a newer jail, they have the ability to do it. So for 6 months, the county's paying $50,000 for this person to be there for 6 months. It's craziness. So just lots of issues like that, just continually having those problems. So we can't get out of that building fast enough to get some better safety, and for the inmates, for the staff, for everybody. So that's the review. So if anybody's any questions on any of that, and then I can talk about the elephant in the room that probably everybody's kind of curious to hear about. So, all right, I don't hear questions, so here we go. So let the daggers go. But so the county has been looking at this for the last couple of years. We did this 10-year forecast. They see in the 26, 27 years, they drop off financially. We've been working on everything. You know, I know I've not filled some positions, clerical stuff. I have not taken a promotional position that I got appointed. I mean, we've done everything we could. We've remained under budget every single year since I've been here. The only time our budget really went up was when we did the raises in 19, which we needed because we just couldn't hire anybody. So we've stayed pretty static for the last decade. But as everything continues to rise, and the inflation and the cost and everything else, countywide, it's just taking its toll. So we were working on a plan to figure this out, and then the asbestos issue rolled in. So that's escalated this time frame to the next 12 to 20 months or so, that financially it's going to come to the point where the commissioners have to balance that budget, as you folks do as well. And if there's not money there, then they have to cut. So those cuts will not only come from the sheriff's office, but they'll come from every place else in the county. That's the big problem. It's all of it's a problem. So for us, you know, the loss of any of our deputies and or all of our deputies, which potentially could be on the hook. If I lost the entire road patrol, I still can't provide them enough money that they're going to be short. So they're still going to have to take from other places. So when the commissioners were talking, we talked about general operating in our meetings. We talked about public safety, and they thought that was a better way to go. But when this came along with the asbestos issue, they determined that they did not want to try to tell a story to their constituents that really wasn't true. So if we do a public safety and the sheriff's office and maybe the prosecutor's office is good to go, but then they turn around and start laying people off. So they said, we're just going to go with general operating. I don't know what the outcome will be. All I can do is educate and get the word out to everybody that these are the things that are on the block. And I can tell you that the sheriff's office, we take 70% of the calls in the county. No disrespect to the state police. I've had good conversations with the lieutenant. We work real well together. They cover 4 counties. They don't run 24/7 operations in Isabella County or any county. And the posts are all that way. They're all regional. So waiting for an hour and a half for a trooper to show up is a real thing. So, between, we take 70% of those calls. I've heard we mismanage our money, we've spent it the wrong direction, and when I say we, I mean the whole county. I challenge anybody to tell me what that was. Maybe there is something. I'd like to explain it if we can, but if it was our fault, then we probably should answer to it, but I don't know what that is. And I've dug in the numbers for, the sheriff's office side, and again, we've been under budget. We haven't asked for additional. I just did the numbers with that 4.8 million helped, but I brought in $6.6 million in donations, allocations, and grants since I started, trying to offset having to ask for additional general fund dollars. So we really tried hard with this. I've heard, well, you built the building, you couldn't afford it. So when we started that project, we had a funding mechanism in place with the windmills and the budget stuff. We were set, and then the economy went crazy, and the cost of everything went up so high. Our project went $10 million up. We'd already spent $3 million, so we did what the evilest word ever called valued engineering. We shrunk buildings, we shrunk sizes, we downsized, we kept pushing it down. We finally got it pushed down to about 5.5, and our back was against the wall with the USDA loan and bonding. We had a 2.125% interest rate, and it was about to expire, and it already went up 3 or 4%, and it was going up again, and there was some new rules, and they averaged that we'd probably be another 10 million on top of it. So the commissioner said, we gotta go. The old building's a train wreck, we're still having problems. Against the wall, we spent 3 million, we got them, so they just went. The other thing I've heard is, well, you gave all those wages, and couldn't afford them. Well, we couldn't afford not to either. We couldn't hire anybody. We were scrambling. I don't want a 14-hour, $15 an hour deputy working for me. And the other thing is that it's just the economy, right? I mean, your bread and milk went up, so did ours. Like, it's just, and it's so awful to have to come back and say, we need more. But without an influx of cash, there's going to be some serious cuts from all over the place. And I have to kind of circle myself around our issues, and our issues is protecting the community.
So the big ramification came from the asbestos. That was
That escalated the time frame.
wasn't there insurance?
They've looked at insurance. They've looked at some of the,
No, I mean, before, was it never insured?
I guess
The building for asbestos in the original, when you bond out or when you insure a building, you used to insure it for that, because when was the building built?
it's 40 some years old,
Yeah,
50 years
so
old.
there should have been insurance. I was just wondering what happened.
And I can't answer that one. I'm not sure. I know that they have looked at every avenue possible, including Superfund cleanups and all kinds of stuff, and they're still dabbling into that, but none of it seems like everybody's like, that's your problem. So I know that there was a time when they went in and they did some studies years ago, and there was no asbestos, but they had to replace the heating and cooling units on the roof. And I think they're saying that what they're saying is, because of the construction, it's now moved it. So everything that was on those pipes has started to shake loose, and that's how they found it. So they talked about capping that, say, sealing it. They said, well, if you do that, it's just gonna make it heavier and fall more. So that was their deciding factor on, okay, we gotta abate it and get it out of there. Now, I'm really hoping that their numbers are off. I think they went high, like in what it's gonna take to, if they knocking down walls, they gotta build walls back in and stuff like that to clean stuff. I'm hoping that it's not as bad as that, but it's really the unknown, and that's the problem. Is it $500,000, $1 million, $3 million? Like, just, you're just spinning a wheel, throwing a dart at it at this point. So until we really know that, we're kind of in this bad area. But if we don't do something soon, money won't be generated in time when they're out of money. So I don't know. And if it's not successful in February, I think there's some hard conversations of exactly what it looks like, and then maybe reach back out to the people and say, what are you willing to, if anything, to do? And if they're not, they're not. If they are, then we need to look at those options.
So I don't know if it was you in the beginning, but maybe it was a previous sheriff that mentioned that you could sell some of the cell space. Is that still part of this deal, or is because they're letting people out no cash bail and stuff?
Yeah.
So I mean, has that taken a hit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you're not gonna be able to make money on that, or what?
The former sheriff, Meshesky, they leased out a lot of beds to other downstate
Okay.
and stuff like that. When I started, they had stopped that because they had such an overcrowding issue here.
Right, that
We
was
used-
the whole deal.
Yeah, we used to have almost 180 to 190, which we were max at that point. So they kind of stopped doing it. And then we came along, or I came along, and we did a US Marshal contract, which we were making pretty good money on that. It was helping a lot. COVID rolled in and nothing moved, right? No, they didn't move their inmates. We just had them. So we were making, daily inmate, revenue on those. Well, then when the court started to catch up, including federal court, now they spun them right out. Like they're the same thing. They come in, they come right out. So we don't have them. So now our population's down to 150 because of bail and bond reform and no cash bail. So they're right out. So we don't have those anymore. Every other county that was overcrowded in the state has the same thing. So they have room, so they're not spending money. They don't need to house them anymore. So everybody's not maxed out anymore. So all of that revenue that was kind of there is no longer there. So, and it's in it for a county, it's hard, we can't raise sewer and water. We do, we've looked at raising fees and what can we do, but it doesn't even come close to the amount of money that we're coming into.
So the new one's gonna have how many beds or how many?
So the new one's about 180.
180.
Yep. It is designed because it's the pod, it's the new design of how they do jails. But say Amazon came in and they dropped in a distribution center and our population grew 200,000. Instead of coming back and saying, now we're overcrowded, we need a new one. It's designed, the kitchen, all the ancillary stuff to drop another pod onto it. So it's designed modularly to add to it over the years. So we never have to kind of get back into a habit of, doing that. So we just drop a new pod, connect it, and you're off and running. So it's none of it's good. And I dumbfounded that I have to stand here in front of you and have this conversation. I go home and I just shake my head sometimes. I don't know. So, I'm frustrated that we spend millions, billions and trillions everywhere else. And we have to come back to the bottom of the barrel to survive. And that's not right, but I can't fix that either. So. But I'll take any other questions. Like I said, we're just trying to get the information out. We just want people to be informed and they'll make the decision what the right course is for them. So.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we have no public hearings. This is the first opportunity for public comment. Name and address for the record, please. If you wish to address it, public comment. Seeing none, we'll go to existing business. Sample chicken ordinance. All right, here we go. This is our big rock.
I worked in the village of Shepherd. Chickens were an issue sometimes.
Pheasants now,
Pheasants? Oh,
emotional support pheasants.
no.
Oh, right.
Well, I'm just a humble zoning administrator. What more do I know?
Yeah. All right,
Emotional present.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, last month you asked me to provide some sample ordinances in your packet. So we brought out the ones that we had kind of worked on probably a decade ago, I would say, maybe a little bit longer. And then I found a handful of others that have varying width of how they deal with it. I included a list in there that these are all the other places that do it, and here are the places that have ordinances that they don't. So what you do with it from here on out is entirely up to you guys.
This is the sample we came up with.
Correct.
So,
And that list, all those are links. You can go and look at any of their ordinances as well.
There's one error. Do we care now?
Unless you're gonna.
No, not an ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this, Jim.
Yes.
Gives us a lot of things to think about, and keep it on the burner.
Have any of these, other municipalities expressed any problems in that?
I have not heard of any from any communities that I've spoken to.
I'm wondering about personally parasites and odor more than anything. That's just something I thought of. Now, this one says, non-waterfront parcels, 15,000 square feet. What's that? 125 by 125?
15,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
gotta be around that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Was this requested by a resident
What's that?
to have chickens?
It's been requested multiple times, yes.
Really?
Yeah, and there are people in the village that have them right now.
So, we are in a position to discuss having chickens. What if we opt not to support chickens? Then what happens to those who currently have them?
We have an ordinance that says you can't.
That you cannot?
Correct.
Yeah, that's already in place.
Yeah.
Right, okay, all right, so,
This would do.
The village's code enforcement procedures, which are adopted by the council, have that as a complaint driven one that we enforce. So it's
that's,
not something that we proactively will enforce, but if the complaint is submitted, it is one that we do enforce through that mechanism. So,
that's kind of what I needed
Yeah,
to
there
know.
hasn't been any complaint that, been there, has there?
there was one that we dealt with, because it was a rooster that was the driver of the complaint. So we did address that complaint.
But as far as the chickens go,
Chickens are
we haven't
rooster.
had any.
That's the only complaint that we've had, that I can recall. And we dealt that was probably 2 years ago.
The other thing is the setbacks. How far from it says what? This example said 20 feet or 10 feet.
One said 10 feet.
But it was 10 from the property line, but if it was a neighbor's, wasn't it 20?
10 and 10.
Are you sure?
Well, because you can't be closer than 10 feet to your property line either. So that would make 20.
Got it. Okay, that's your gauge one. Okay.
Whatever we do with this, we're gonna have to look very hard at the number of those chickens
And where it's located,
and the acceptable locations, yeah.
because,
Certainly wouldn't want anything near a waterfront or anything.
right. And,
There's a lot of
and
areas in the village that are,
you don't want it in the front yard either.
no, I wouldn't think so.
You know what I mean? We don't even let sheds in the front yard.
You doing waterfront parcels?
Yeah, on key lots you do. But that brings up another one. Key lots are a lot different than other ones because you could be looking out your window at the chicken coop. Because lots are narrow on the water and wide on the road, and the next one is wide on the water and narrow.
So I might put chickens on the road in some places
Or in
or on the
in
water.
front,
others,
right
yeah.
next to your
Yeah.
25 or 30
Yeah.
feet of frontage.
I didn't really look too hard at like the sample regulations, because to me, it just doesn't fit the look and the feel of our village. You know, we've passed, since I've been on the council, you know, we've passed stuff for, you know, the 5G towers, you know, people don't wanna look at those. We have a point system for accessory structures, like you have to put stone and you have to, you know, I had to put windows in my garage doors and that costs an extra $1,000, but now the neighbors can throw up a chicken coop. Like, it just doesn't, you know, either, and I'm not one for, you know, rules, but that is, you know, like the regulations, like on the size of barns and whatnot. I'm not extremely fond on that stuff, but I just don't think that that is the look and the feel of the village, and I think that this will be a code enforcement nightmare too. And a whole nother,
I was surprised at the number of cities and municipalities that
Already have it.
have them.
it's
Yeah,
a
we have to
popular
look at the
thing.
restrictions.
Social media, I mean, it is, you can Google it and find a bunch of stuff, it's just, you know, now being a lake community plus, you know, other communities or other neighborhoods in here, you know, you're gonna tell the waterfront people no, and then now what? And I've been paying attention to people with chickens, and I've seen chickens at houses, and I've seen a lot of them. Then, since our last meeting, I've been checking out if they have chickens. I look at the house. I don't know if I've seen a house that, that's the look we're going for. We don't have overhead power lines, we have a lot of stuff in our zoning, and when you see a house with a chicken, they're probably gonna be talking to our code enforcement guy. Let's put it that way. And he's not. And for 4 chickens that lay 5 eggs, you're talking about what? We're talking about $4 of the eggs a week. Like, they're not,
Well, plus one of these said no selling. They can't be a business, it's just for yourself. That was one of the
but
rules in one of these,
you
so,
know that's gonna happen too.
well, true.
There's gonna be a sign, eggs $2.50 a dozen or whatever.
Well, I think we could still just keep, I'm not. I think it needs more, we have to do some more consideration and find out. What some of those other communities do or did and why they said yes, and then the other ones that said no and why they said no.
And what, if any problems?
Right.
Yeah,
Right, because if we know ahead of time that there are these kinds of problems, then.
we might be
that
able to
helps us.
mitigate it,
Right.
or maybe you can't. Like Brent
Be
said,
interested to see what that next survey goes out.
it'll be good to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, well, let's keep that on the burner. Thank you for doing that, Tim, doing all that stuff, because it gives us something to work with and to think about. Any other questions, comments? Okay, new business. Number 1.
Mr. President, you have received a letter of resignation from Village Council member and Village Treasurer Charlie Keel. He has taken up residency in the great state of Florida. He is now Florida man. And still obviously owns a home here in the community, owns a hangar. Gonna spend, most of his time, in the summer, especially here, but is no longer a legal resident. Doesn't stay here, so he is no longer eligible to be on the village council, as the village charter requires that you be a permanent resident of the community. So he has submitted his resignation, and since he is an officer of the council, you are also tasked with finding a new village treasurer. And then also, the village charter has a stipulation that once you accept the letter of resignation, you have 42 days to appoint a successor, the council as a whole. If the council does not do so after that period of time, the village president has the sole authority to appoint the successor. Mr. Keel's term, he was just elected, I believe.
Mhm.
So whoever is appointed to this seat would serve until this upcoming election, at which time the remainder of the seat would be filled as a partial term on the ballot. So the 3 seats that are up this year are Laraway, Shannon, and Davis. So there will be 3 4-year terms up and then a 2-year partial term up this November.
Okay.
24.
I guess I would move that we accept the resignation.
Motion made by Laraway to accept the resignation of Charlie Keel, treasurer. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Is none?
Mhm.
Brent, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, I got it, thank you.
Okay, but roll call please.
Robert Laraway,
Yes.
Brian Peavy,
Yes.
Carol Shannon, yes. Al Davis,
Yes.
Dave Ferguson.
Yes. Motion carries. 5-0. Resolution 2023-20, oh, no, we have to, Mr. Laraway,
Yeah.
if you have an objection to being the treasurer. I know, no, I phrased that wrong.
Yeah.
Look, you do it if I twist your arm hard enough.
I will agree to fill in that position.
Is there any-
At least until the next election.
Okay.
We get some new blood, anybody that wants it is more than welcome to.
Okay.
But for now, I will.
I have no objection.
Any objections? Okay, make it so,
He's appointed.
yeah. Without objection, little arm twisting. Then we have, bank account signers.
So your next item of business is you have to adopt a resolution modifying our authorized signers at the bank. Because obviously, Gail is no longer a member of the council. He cannot disperse funds on behalf of the village. The current slate of signers, clerk, president, treasurer, pro temp, and Mr. Davis as a,
So does he really have to do that if he's a pro temp?
well, you have to remove Charlie from the account. You have to update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have two jobs.
Oh, shouldn't have reminded him.
All right,
You're pressing it.
yeah. And who was the fourth one, the council member? Who was that?
Okay.
Yep.
But what is the village clerk? Does that come under
Carol.
Carol's the clerk.
the, oh, okay. Okay.
Sign.
I missed it.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. So,
We have to have a motion then.
yes, to
To
accept
remove Charlie.
resolution with removing Charlie and um,
That's all you got.
appointing Bob as treasurer.
We don't have to have 5 signers, so you 4 sign.
No, you can have two,
Just two sign. This is, we did that so that
someone be available.
somebody would be available. Okay.
I'll make a
Sure.
motion that we accept resolution 2023-22.
Replacing Charlie, accepting Charlie, or replacing Charlie Keel as treasurer with Bob. Made by Peavy, second by
I'll second.
Davis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Over their way.
Yeah.
Brian Peavy,
Yes.
Carol Shannon, yes. Al Davis,
Yes.
Dave Ferguson.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Okay, the bank account.
So the last item of business I have for you was, a request to begin the process to open a separate checking account with a financial institution other than Isabella Bank for the dredging project specifically. So when we created the joint lake restoration committee with the association, both boards agreed that this would be a rather autonomous entity. It's a marriage of our two organizations. And in thinking through, how this process is going to work once we start receiving funds, because obviously we haven't collected taxes, that will be in July. Jessica and I talked through this in terms of our internal controls and our procedures here in the office, and presented it to Charlie, who endorsed it, presented to Lake Committee, who endorsed it, says, you know, it makes more sense, in our opinion, for this activity to have its own checking account, its own, you know, checks, disbursements, apart from our general checking account, our general fund. So the way we would handle it is every month when we reconcile the bank accounts, we would do a transfer of whatever revenue we receive that month in terms of tax payments. Because everything's gonna get paid off of one bill. So your tax bill is gonna have your operating, your Broomfield fire assessment for those half, and then your third of a mil for the sheriff, and then your 3 mils for the dredging project. So we'll have to get that, we'll do the accounting and say, you know, this chunk of that money goes to this, as we do now, if this chunk goes to the police, you know. This chunk goes into the special assessment. And then once a month, we would make that transfer from whatever we had incoming that month to this account. And then that would be what the committee would have at their disposal. And this also, I think, creates an easier opportunity if in the future there is any revenue generated from the sale of spoils, any donations that come in. And also putting it in that account allows it to bear its own interest as opposed to just the general interest that occurs in our general checking account that we do accounting for. It just makes more sense, I think, in my opinion, to give it that type of treatment based on the nature of the agreement. on how it is functioning as a group that is made up of village and LIPOA collectively. We still obviously are gonna get audited on it. We still have to, you know,
It'd be a part of our regular
it'd be
audit.
a part of our regular audit, correct, yes.
We're responsible for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
What
nothing
about-
to think about.
You know, they are public funds, that's not gonna change, it's just
Right.
this way that group knows that this is that pool of money that's not
And it gives
intermingled
them
with our
some
funds.
Autonomy, some
Yeah.
autonomy.
So in signing checks, we still would have signers.
Correct.
We would do it exactly the way we're
Yep.
doing it now, is just they would have their own budget. and make their own. Okay, I think that makes lots of sense.
Would they have their own signers or would we be doing the sign?
I think you can do it either way.
I think they should have their own signers.
Well, that's a catch 22, but they don't have to keep running to us every. Then.
I think of it kind of like a construction loan, you know?
Yeah.
A little bit like a construction loan where you got that money. And then you have to account for it later, but you can spend it the way you want to. You don't have to go to the bank to get a check to pay the subcontractor.
You know, if you
But
did
you
choose,
do waivers.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
did choose two signers, you know, my recommendation to the committee would be one signer has to be village, one has to be association.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, that makes the most sense.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah,
You know, especially,
so there has to be an agreement.
and they will designate, they'll need to designate who those authorized members are.
Because we'd go through the final thing to the bank, just like we do with ours.
Yeah. Cause if
Okay.
anyone's gonna have to go through and do their license and all the, Sarbanes-Oxley, all that fun anti-terrorism stuff that you have to do now in the open bank account. So. And they may say, hey, we don't wanna do that. You guys just sign the checks too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
So they're going to decide, we're offering this option, and then they'll decide if they want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we
I think
can
so.
address that at the next lake committee. At that point.
We don't want
Sign
the LIPOA to think that, I mean, we want to be together.
Right.
So we want to
absolutely.
talk about it and agree on it,
Mhm.
you know, what we're going to do, how we're going to do this. We don't want to take it over.
Right, no, I think it's a good idea.
Like I say, along with the checks, you know, we should have a waiver. You know, from the contractor, whoever we're contracting different portions, you know, we should definitely keep a paper trail on the waivers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would have to.
You know,
Yeah, cause any of the contracts are gonna have to include like the Title VI Civil Rights Act, non-discrimination clauses, all the stuff that we are required to do because we're a governmental entity, this group has to do as well.
So,
We just signed some word about that.
and you're taking care of that, or they're taking care of that, the committee.
Well, I'll be the one that, or the village manager or whoever at the village that drafts the RFPs and the contract are gonna be the one that has to ensure that they meet the legal requirements.
okay,
Does public money have to be FDIC insured? So I don't know that credit unions are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're,
Only because I have a. account.
they're, it's not FDIC, it's the.
No, it's another
But
one.
it's the same,
Yeah, but it's credit union
Yeah.
coverage, so yeah,
yeah.
that's a good question.
But that is also, that was one of the things that we had discussed with Charlie before his resignation. Is that, in the coming year, we need to readjust our investment portfolio where, to reduce our custodial risk on some funds because we are over that FDIC limit on our account right now. And to bring that back into CDARS in a way that is manageable, because we do have a substantial project coming up with the overlay that we can't lock funds up for a year in CD. You know,
Right.
we're actually gonna have to spend it in the near future, so. Yeah, that was a discussion that has been had about, you know, moving some of our checking account money over into this program again, so that it lowers our custodial risk on it.
so the action we need tonight is to pick one of these so we can go to the Lake Restoration Committee and
Yeah, I think it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. I would probably prefer to go with ICCU. I mean, they seem to be the most straightforward out of the
yeah,
group.
no minimum balance or
Yeah.
monthly fee, they don't say anything.
0.1% of APR is nothing.
No.
So
Yeah,
Well, and you know, some of the ones, like I looked at Independent Bank, I looked at Mercantile, I looked at some of the other ones and there were some concerning things about, if you deposit over this amount of money, they charge you a fee based on that amount. It's like, we're gonna deposit $300,000 a year, like, I don't want you taking even 15, 20 bucks off the top.
No.
I was never concerned about the, over on the number of transactions,
Right.
but I was also concerned about maintaining a like $35,000 balance, like, these are funds to be collected to be spent, they're not collected to sit in an account, so we avoid a $7 a month fee or some nonsense like that. But
So do we have to make?
You're trying to get away from Isabella Bank for sure.
yeah, because that's where our general checking account is at. So I figured to truly give it autonomy and independence, I didn't want it at the same institution.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want it at PNC because that's where I personally bank. So that's just an integrity thing on my end.
I was just thinking of scenarios like, it'd just be easier to transfer money, but you'd probably only do that once. Like,
Yeah,
once the millage came in, you probably transfer it one
Once a
time.
month. Yep. Yeah, it's an ACH transfer.
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think ICCU is the credit union would be the one to pick, looks like to me. Cause we get to direct this to
Yeah.
the committee is agreed to have it someplace,
Yeah.
but we're responsible for the money.
Yeah.
We're on the hook, so
Yeah.
we get to decide which bank we're gonna use.
About overdraft protection. You can do that.
Or savings.
You want to be a signer, don't you?
It's gonna be expensive.
All right,
Those monthly donations from BioLife going in there for everybody.
So we don't have to do anything official?
not, I don't.
Just
I
right
don't think so. I think,
I think, but we can wait and then run it by
Right.
them.
yeah, when I come back with, I think the actual documents is when you gotta approve it.
Right, and Brent and I
Okay.
are gonna, and you, if you come to the meeting, and Bob, we're all on the Lake Restoration Committee. No, I know you're an alternate, I'm just
Okay,
saying if
thank
you're
you.
there,
Okay,
so we can tell them what we decided to.
yeah,
Yeah, I think the LIPOA would think that's a good idea too.
Yeah,
Have separate bank accounts.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think so.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Where is their banking at?
this is all bank. Lisa was last time I checked.
Yeah, it still is.
Well, this is nice, cause it's at a glance.
Yes.
As soon as you get a letter or statement or something at a glance, boom, you know
Boom,
where,
done.
where it goes directly.
okay. Any other questions? Second opportunity for public comment. Right? Oh, I do.
Tell me when.
Yeah,
We have a public person here gonna talk, I think.
okay, yeah, I'm sorry,
Do I have to say?
just say.
Drew Feldman. So if there's an ordinance already for the chickens, how come we're not enforcing the ordinance already?
As was mentioned in the meeting.
Yeah.
The council's policy has that as a complaint-driven process.
Right.
So that is not one that we proactively enforce like blight or those type of things. So if we get a complaint, we enforce it. That's not one that we will proactively seek out.
And we have not had any complaints.
Which prompted the. If we have it or not.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody complained yet, so it's not something we go out and look for at this point.
We don't have the staff to proactively go after.
That's what I was just
Right.
gonna say is, it's it kinda comes down to a money thing,
It's priority.
Why do we wanna spend a lot of money chasing that down when nobody's complaining about it?
And are you gonna let them have free roaming chickens?
Every step.
That's all in the, that would be in an ordinance if we adopted one.
Yeah,
In all the samples we have, every one of them says no free roaming.
Is there a amount on space that you could have? So if I have 10 acres on this side of the lake, could I fill up all the chickens?
As long as they can have as much room as they need for 6.
yeah.
There's a max
There's
number of
max of
chickens.
6.
Well,
Should we do
That's-
that?
that's just in our sample. We're
Yeah,
just, we're just
that's in
starting
our
at the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
So,
But-
yeah.
But there would be some cap on how many.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there'll be a
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have
That's what we're trying to do is work through it.
Yeah.
You know, right here.
Anybody else? Okay. We have a report.
Adopt a family report.
What's the comments?
We took in $4,900 from the community. We had boxes at, Out of Bounds, Ace here, and the LIPOA office. And then lots of people donated through mail or drop off. We supported one Wademan Elementary family that are from Lake Isabella, 2 single women from the women's shelter, a family that was recommended by Big Brother, Big Sister. And then we supported the Big Brother, Big Sister coat purchases. We purchased 11 coats. We thought we would get more, but prices are significantly higher this year than last. So, and then we will also, the food pantry is going to receive money. We haven't done that yet because we ran into a schedule snag, but we'll load and then deliver it to them. And then teachers in the Wademan have requested some supplies that we will support as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good report. All right, announcements. Next meeting is January of what?
January,
Those are
I don't even know.
like January 16th, sounds about right. The village office will be closed this Friday for the Christmas Eve holiday, Monday for the Christmas Day holiday, next Friday for the New Year's Eve holiday, and the following Monday for the New Year's holiday.
Okay, must be the holiday season.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Meeting adjourned.